The text landed just as my kettle clicked off. 3 words detonated a decade of being the good daughter. I closed my banking app and flipped 6 quiet switches. The house I'd been funding for years started to flicker. By the time the turkey was cold, my screen showed 87 missed calls, and I hadn't even played my ace yet. My name is Isla Thomas. I am 28 years old, and I am a mid-level financial analyst at Northcrest Analytics. In my world, everything has a place, every number, every projection, every risk. I live in Brookridge, in a clean, sensible apartment where the only real color comes from the spreadsheets I review after hours. My job is to identify liabilities, to see a potential default months before it happens. I am good at my job. I am precise. I am reliable. I was in the middle of my personal monthly budget when the text message arrived. It was a Tuesday, just before 9 p.m. The kettle was moments from boiling for my nightly tea. My apartment was silent except for the click of my laptop keys and the low hum of the refrigerator. On my screen was the spreadsheet that governed my life. It was a precise, brutal accounting of every dollar I earned and every dollar I gave away. The phone vibrated on the desk, a hard, angry buzz. I glanced at it. The sender was Mom. The message was, "You're banned from Thanksgiving, idiot." No explanation, no context followed, just the words, stark white on a black background. My breath hitched, not a gasp, but a shallow intake of air that felt too cold. Idiot. The word hung there, vibrating more than the phone had. It was a casual, efficient cruelty. I didn't reply. I looked back at my spreadsheet. Column F. The header just said, Autopay. It should have been labeled Family. Row 2 Brookridge Utility Commission, the electric bill for my parents' house, due on the 22nd, $184. It had been in my name ever since that winter 3 years ago when Dad was between jobs, and they needed help to keep the lights on. They were never between jobs again. But the bill stayed with me. Row 3 Apex Broadband, their internet, the premium gigabit tier, $119. Why? Because my cousin Carter, the sales star, needed reliable speeds for his VPN whenever he deigned to visit them. Row 4 All-Line Insurance, the policy for my father. Victor's truck, a vehicle I was not allowed to borrow because I wouldn't understand the clutch, $212 a month. Row 5 T-Mobile Family Plan, 6 lines, my line, Mom and Dad's lines, my Aunt Patrice's line, and 2 iPads, whose iPads I had stopped asking 2 years ago. $340, all billed to my credit card, the one that earned me a pathetic 1% cash back on my own family's dependency. Row 6 Shell Gas Card. This one was my favorite. It was a secondary card on my account, issued to Aunt Patrice. She was supposed to use it only to drive Dad to his doctor appointments. The last statement showed purchases in 3 different states, none of which contained his doctor. $95. My eyes scanned the total. This was just the autopay. This wasn't the emergencies. I looked up from the monitor, past my own reflection in the dark window, to the refrigerator. There was a magnet holding a glossy 4x6 photo. It was from last Christmas, all of us, posed by the fireplace at my parents' house, wearing matching cabled sweaters that Mom had ordered. We looked happy. We looked normal. We looked like the kind of family that helped each other. But the photograph was a lie. The photograph was a beautifully marketed prospectus for a company that was functionally insolvent. The truth was favoritism, thick and suffocating, all directed at Carter. Carter, who worked in logistics and always wore shirts that cost more than my car payment. Carter, who was always on the verge of a massive commission. Carter, who had never, not once, paid for a round of drinks in his life if I was present. My role in this family tableau was set in stone 5 years ago. My father, Victor, had needed a sudden surgery. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was expensive. The copay was $4,000. Mom had called me, weeping. "We just don't have it, Isla. The hospital wants it up front." I was 23. I had just started at Northcrest. I drained my savings account, the account I had been building since I was 16, bagging groceries. "We'll pay you back next month," Dad had whispered from the hospital bed, his hand papery and thin. Promise. The promise evaporated. The money was never mentioned again. But the dynamic shifted. The test had been passed. I had paid. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was their safety net. A safety net is a thankless object. It's invisible until you fall, and then it is expected to bear the full weight without complaint. Their motto, whenever I gently questioned a new expense, was always the same. Family helps family. Isla. It was a shield, a verbal cudgel to beat back any attempt at a boundary. But family only ever meant me, and helps only ever flowed in one direction. 2 weeks ago, they had all gone out for Carter's promotion dinner, a big affair at Luca's, the Italian place downtown with white tablecloths and waiters in ties. Carter had supposedly landed a huge new client. The restaurant was loud with toasts. To Carter, the man making it happen. I was there, sitting at the end of the table, nursing a club soda. I ate the cheapest thing on the menu, a bland chicken marsala, while Carter regaled them with stories of his negotiating prowess. When the check came, Carter had waved it away grandly. "Don't worry, Mom's got this." I knew, with the cold certainty of a balance sheet, that Mom did not have this. The $400 dinner tab would be absorbed. Mom would borrow it from the utility budget, which meant I would pay for it when the electric bill came due. I was funding the celebration of the family's golden boy, the one they preferred over me, and they didn't even have the decency to thank me. The idiot text hadn't come from nowhere. It was the endpoint of a conversation that had started hours earlier. It started in the Thomas Clan Updates group chat. A brightly colored, pixelated graphic of a turkey had appeared, posted by Mom. Thanksgiving seating chart. Can't wait to see everyone. A neatly typed list of names appeared under the cartoon bird. Mom, Dad, Aunt Patrice, Uncle Ron, Carter, and Carter's +1 Jessica. I scanned the list 3 times. My name was not on it. My fingers hovered over the screen. I felt the familiar burn of humiliation. I could stay silent. I could just not show up, but then I would be antisocial and difficult at Christmas. I typed a message. I kept it light. I kept it polite, the way I always did. "Hey everyone. Just checking on the seating for Thursday. Looks like I might have been missed on the chart. Let me know where I should sit." I hit send. The read receipts piled up immediately. Mom, Dad, Aunt Patrice, Carter, silence. A deep, profound digital silence that lasted for 3 hours. I worked on a Northcrest projection, my stomach twisting. Then, a reply. Not from Mom, from Carter. "Limited space this year. Isla, we're tight on room. Be good, and maybe Christmas." Be good, like I was a child, like I was a pet, like I wasn't the 28-year-old woman paying for the very data plan he had used to send that insulting, dismissive message. The silence that followed from the rest of the family was worse. It was consent. It was agreement. I didn't text back. I was done with texting. I stared at Carter's name. Then I exited the chat and hit the call button for Mom. It rang twice. "Hello?" It wasn't my mother. It was my Uncle Ron, his voice thick with beer. "Hey, Uncle Ron, is Mom there?" I could hear them. The sound of a party. Glasses clinking. Loud laughter. They were all together. A pre-Thanksgiving gathering I also hadn't been invited to. Ron's voice boomed away from the receiver, addressing the room. "Hold on. Everybody, quiet down. It's the budget police. The IRS is calling." A roar of laughter. I recognized Aunt Patrice's high-pitched cackle. "Tell her the check's in the mail." My blood ran cold. Budget police. So that's what I was. Not Isla, not daughter, just the bank. The phone fumbled, and Mom finally came on the line. "Isla." "What is it? We're busy." Her voice was sharp, annoyed. "Mom, I saw the group chat. What's going on with Thanksgiving?" A heavy sigh. "Oh, that." The sound of her taking a drag from a cigarette. "Isla, don't make this a thing. Carter's new girlfriend, Jessica, is coming, and she's very important to him. We're packed. It's just dinner. So I'm just not invited. My voice was small. I hated it. Stop being so dramatic, she snapped. God, you always do this. We'll see you at Christmas if you stop acting like this. Acting like what? The smallness in my voice was gone. It was replaced by something else, something hard. Acting like the person who pays for the lights in that room, like the person who pays for the internet you're all using. Oh, here we go, Uncle Ron yelled, still audible. She's pulling the money card, full-on guilt trip. Isla, Mom said, her voice dropping into a warning tone. You offered to help. Family helps family. That was your choice. Don't you dare hold that over our heads. It's ugly. It's ugly that I pay for your internet, but I'm not allowed to sit at your table, I countered. It's ugly that I pay for Dad's car insurance, but I can't get a ride to a family dinner, is that it? If I'm the budget police, I said, and the words felt sharp and clean in my mouth, then I guess I should do my job. Stop using my credit card for the auto pay. All of it. A pause. It was the first time I had ever heard them silent. The party noise stopped. The laughter died. It was just dead air. What did you say? Mom's voice was a low hiss. You heard me. If I'm not family enough for a plate of turkey, I'm not family enough to fund the party. Take my card off the accounts. I'm done. A sharp click. She hung up on me. I stared at the black screen of my phone. My hand was shaking. Not with fear, but with adrenaline. It felt like I had just jumped from a plane. 1 second later, the screen lit up. A new message. From Mom. You're banned from Thanksgiving, idiot. So, here I was, back at my desk. The kettle was whistling, a high-pitched scream that filled the apartment. I got up, walked to the kitchen, and turned it off. I returned to the desk. I looked at the text. Idiot. I looked back at my spreadsheet. Column F, auto pay. Row 2, BUC Power. Row 3, Apex Broadband. Row 4, All Line Insurance. Row 5, T-Mobile Family. Row 6, Shell Gas Card. I had forgotten row 7, the big one, the one I tried not to look at. The mortgage. My name was on the cosign. The auto payment, a staggering $1,400, was routed from my primary checking account. Just until Dad's pension clears, Mom had said. That was 18 months ago. 6 switches, power, internet, insurance, phone, gas, and the house itself. The threat I made on the phone wasn't a threat. It was a financial projection. It was a new budget. Isla Thomas, an analyst at Northcrest, was reallocating my assets. I opened 6 new tabs in my browser. Brookridge Utility Commission, Apex Broadband, All Line Insurance, T-Mobile, Shell, Bank of Brookridge Mortgage Services. My fingers, trained by a decade of data entry and analysis, flew across the keyboard. I logged into each account. I navigated to billing. I found the Manage Autopay sections. My card number, the one I knew by heart, stared back at me. Click, remove payment method. Click, confirm cancellation. Click, switch to paper billing. Address Victor and Elaine Thomas. Click, transfer account ownership. Click, deauthorize user. Click, cancel secondary card. 6 quiet clicks, 6 switches, flipped from on to off. I sat back. The house of cards I had been funding for years had just lost its foundation. Every single responsibility was now back in the hands of its rightful owner. I looked at my spreadsheet. Column F was empty. My phone was still dark. The text message glowed on the lock screen. They thought I was the budget police. They thought I was an idiot. They were about to find out I was just a very good analyst. This wasn't a sudden snap. It wasn't one text message. It was the end of a long, painful audit, one that had been running for years. It was a history of invisible fires, and I was the only one holding an extinguisher. My life as their financial firefighter had a clear timeline, built not in dates, but in invoices. It was the tires on Dad's truck, a call from the side of a highway in the rain. Isla, I'm on the steel. The tread just peeled off. I paid $430 over the phone to a mechanic I had never met, my hands shaking as I gave him my credit card number. It was the post-op prescriptions after his surgery, not the big bill, but the death by 1,000 cuts at the pharmacy counter, standing in line at CVS, reading my card numbers out loud for blood pressure pills, $30 here, $50 there, because Mom's card was acting weird again. It was the hard month at the supermarket, a call from Mom in the checkout line, her voice a practiced whisper. "Honey, I'm at the register, and I'm just $70 short. Can you just cover this one? I get my check on the 3rd. The 3rd came and went. The next hard month arrived right on schedule. The phone plan was the anchor. I was 24, just starting to build my own life. When Mom cornered me at the T-Mobile store, "Isla, your credit score is the highest," she said, bright and proud, as if my 740 score was a family achievement. "It's just better if you're the primary account holder. It'll save us all money." I signed. It felt responsible. I didn't realize I was signing a 6-person contract, locking myself in as the provider for a family that included my parents, Aunt Patrice, and 2 data-hungry iPads I had never even seen. The internet was the convenience trap. Dad, bless him, could never remember his passwords. "Isla, can you just set this up for me? Put your card in for the first month, just to get it running, and I'll take it over." That was 36 months ago. One time for convenience had become a permanent $119 monthly deduction from my checking account. But those were the things I had, at some level, agreed to. The real rot started when I discovered the things I hadn't. The first surprise, the one that truly stole my breath, happened when I applied for my first serious car loan. The loan officer, a man with tired eyes, frowned at his monitor. "Miss Thomas, there's a flag here. Can you explain this account with Brookridge Builders Supply? It has a balance of $2,300 and has been in collections." I went cold. "I've never been to Brookridge Builders Supply. I don't build things." He turned the screen. My name, my social security number. The account was opened 7 years ago, when I was a junior in college, working part-time in the campus library. I called Mom from the bank parking lot, my voice trembling. "Mom, why is there a hardware store credit card in my name?" She laughed, a light, airy sound that made my stomach clench. "Oh, don't be dramatic. Isla, your father needed a new table saw for the garage. We couldn't get approved, and your credit was just sitting there. I just co-signed for you. But you're the main owner. It was just to get the discount." "You used my social security number to open a line of credit without my permission." It wasn't a question. "Isla, stop making a big deal," she snapped, the laughter gone. "It's a family card. We use it for the house. You're part of this family. Aren't you? Why are you being so difficult?" Difficult. That was the first label. It was quickly joined by others. When Carter, my sales star cousin, needed to borrow $500 for a family fund to secure a business deal, he promised to pay it back by Friday. When Friday became a month, and I asked about it, I was petty and fixated on money. When I declined his second request, I was told, "You know, Isla, a daughter should be softer. You're too hard about these things." I tried to set boundaries. I tried, gently, to explain that I had my own savings goals, that I couldn't be their emergency fund. The pushback was immediate and brutal. "Ungrateful," Mom had hissed, her face pinched. "After everything we've done for you, we put a roof over your head for 18 years, and you're going to hold a tiny phone bill over us. That's ugly." I was trapped. I was paying rent on a childhood they held over me as collateral. The expenses piled up. I noticed the data usage on the phone bill skyrocketing. I checked the account details. A new device had been added, a top-of-the-line tablet. "I didn't own a tablet," I asked Mom. "Oh, it's just a new iPad," she said vaguely. "Don't worry about it." I would later find out it belonged to Carter, who was using it to stream sports at his own apartment, all on my tab. Every time I worked up the nerve to cut them off, to finally change the passwords and cancel the cards. My father would call. He was the good cop, his voice always full of regret. Isla, I know. You're right. It's not fair to you. I'm so sorry. Look, my pension check clears on the 1st. I'll take over the car insurance then. I promise. Just give me until the 1st. The surge of hope was overwhelming. I would relent. Okay, Dad. Just, please. This time. The 1st of the month would come. The money would hit his account, and nothing would change. The auto-pay would draft from my account, as always. The conversation would be forgotten, evaporating like steam. His shame was just a performance, a strategic maneuver to buy my compliance for another 30 days. While my bank account dwindled, my mother's Facebook wall flourished. It was a digital shrine to Carter. So proud of my amazing nephew Carter for closing another massive deal. This boy is going places. Here's Carter with his new car. Hard work always pays off. I read those posts while reconciling my accounts, realizing my hard work was paying for the very internet she used to post them. I was the silent, invisible scaffolding holding up the stage he danced on. So, as an analyst, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I started to build a case. I went to Staples and bought a cheap, 2-inch vinyl binder, the white one with the clear plastic cover. I started printing everything. The receipt for the 4 tires from the roadside shop, the stack of CVS slips for Dad's prescriptions, the grocery receipts Mom had sworn to repay, the original T-Mobile agreement, showing my signature as the sole responsible party, the credit report from the bank, showing the hardware store account I never opened. I 3-hole punched every invoice, every statement, every "I'll pay you back" text message. The binder grew heavy. I kept it on the bottom shelf of my desk, a silent, waiting liability. Last Christmas was the final entry. We were all at their house, the lights on the tree twinkling. The electricity for those lights was, of course, on my auto-pay. Mom passed out the gifts. "And this," she announced, beaming, "is for Carter." He unwrapped a heavy, polished wooden box. Inside was a luxury watch, all silver and dark blue, with a dozen tiny dials. It was breathtaking. It was easily worth $2,000. "Wow, Aunt Elaine," he breathed, strapping it on. "This is incredible." "Only the best for my #1 salesman," she said, winking. My gift was next. It was in a small, festive paper bag. I reached in and pulled out a scented candle, vanilla bean, the kind they sell near the checkout counter at the supermarket. "We know you love those," Dad said, smiling, as if he had remembered a cherished secret. I held the candle. It weighed almost nothing. I looked at the gleaming, complex machinery on Carter's wrist. I looked at my $12 piece of scented wax. And I thought of the binder. I thought of the thousands of dollars, the hardware store, the car insurance, the phone lines, the mortgage. I smiled. It was a perfect, brittle smile. "Thank you," I said. "It's lovely." That was the moment. That was when I stopped being their daughter and started being their creditor. I stopped hoping for them to change and started simply waiting for the default. The binder wasn't a box of memories. It was my documentation for collections. And tonight, with one text message, with one word idiot, they had finally, officially, defaulted on their last extension of credit. The next morning, I did not go to work. I called in sick. My voice a flat, level monotone that was more convincing than any fake cough. Then I took the white vinyl binder from my desk, put it in my briefcase, and drove to the Corner Sip, a quiet, sterile coffee shop far from my usual neighborhood. Marisol Vega was already there. She was waiting in a back booth, a laptop open, a ceramic mug of black coffee steaming at her elbow. Marisol is a senior director at Northcrest. She's the one who hired me, the one who taught me how to read a balance sheet not for what it says, but for what it hides. She is 45, sharp as honed steel, and does not tolerate fools or ambiguity. I sat down. I didn't order anything. I simply unzipped my briefcase and placed the white binder on the Formica table. She looked at the binder, then at my face. She closed her laptop. "This isn't a work problem. Is it, Isla? It's a data analysis problem, I said. I pushed the binder toward her. She opened it to the first tab. Auto Pay Utilities. She flipped the page. Auto Pay Telecom. She spent 20 minutes in silence. She scanned the T-Mobile agreement, her finger tracing my signature. She looked at the copy of the Brookridge Builders supply statement, the one with the $2,000 balance. She read the printouts of the text messages. She lingered on the last one. Idiot. Finally. She closed the binder. She looked up, and her eyes were not sympathetic. They were analytical. You've been miscategorized, Marisol said. She tapped the thick plastic cover. You are not listed on their books as daughter. You are accounts payable. You are their infrastructure. She took a long sip of her coffee. This is a structural dependency you have enabled. And the numbers, Isla, she said, tapping the binder again, show they have no intention of changing the terms. You're a net, not a daughter. You have to cut the net. I did last night, I said. I logged in. I removed my card from everything. Power, internet, phone, gas, the mortgage. Marisol nodded, but she wasn't impressed. That's phase 1. That's a panic response. That just stops the bleeding. Now comes the procedure. A defaulting account can't just be ignored. Isla, it has to be legally and technically unwound. Otherwise, they just find a new way to get your money. She pulled a pen from her jacket and grabbed a clean napkin from the dispenser. She drew 3 column headers. 1, legal, 2, technical, 3, communication. This is your checklist, she said. This is how you firewall yourself, not as a daughter, but as an analyst. No emotion, just procedure. I drove home. I sat at my desk. The sun was streaming into my quiet apartment. My phone was silent. They hadn't realized the auto pay was gone yet. They wouldn't. Not for a few days. I had time. I opened my laptop and addressed column 1 legal. First, the credit freeze. I went to the website for Experian. I entered my social security number, my address, and answered the security questions my mother had helped me create. What was the name of your first pet? I froze my credit. 1 down. I went to TransUnion. I entered the same information. I clicked the button. Freeze. 2 down. I went to Equifax. Freeze. 3 down. My credit. The score I had guarded so zealously was now locked down. No one could open a new line of credit in my name. Not me. Not my mother. Second, the fraud alert. I placed a 90-day initial fraud alert on all 3 bureaus. It was a secondary layer, one that required any potential creditor to contact me directly, by phone, to verify my identity before issuing credit. Third, the dispute. This was the hard part. I logged into my credit report and found the collection account Brookridge Builders Supply. I clicked Dispute this item. A box popped up. Reason for dispute. I selected I did not authorize this account. The system then prompted me to upload a police report or an FTC identity theft affidavit. My hands, so steady during the freezes, began to shake. This was the line. I was, in legal terms, accusing my mother of fraud. I took a breath. I went to the Federal Trade Commission's website. I filled out the affidavit, detailing the date the account was opened, 7 years prior, and the fact that I was not aware of it. I saved the PDF. I uploaded it to the dispute portals for all 3 bureaus. I had just legally documented that my mother stole my identity. Column 1 was complete. Column 2 technical. This was the unwinding. This was the part that required patience. First, passwords and security. I went through every financial account I owned. My checking, my savings, my 401k, my brokerage account. I changed every password to a 24-character randomized string. I changed all my security questions to answers that were lies. What is your mother's maiden name? A random word from a book. What city were you born in? Chicago. I was born in Brookridge. I enabled 2-factor authentication on everything. Routing the codes to my phone. A phone I now plan to isolate. Second, the utility transfer. Removing my card wasn't enough. I was still the owner of the accounts. I called the Brookridge Utility Commission. I sat on hold for 45 minutes. listening to a tinny loop of classical music. Brookridge Utilities. This is Brenda. Hello, Brenda. My name is Isla Thomas. I am the account holder for the service at 1255 Oakwood Drive. I am moving out. I need to transfer the account ownership and all financial responsibility to the current residents, Elaine and Victor Thomas, effective immediately. Okay, ma'am. But we can't just transfer it. They will need to apply for a new service in their own name. We'll have to shut off the power under your account. That's fine, I said. When is the soonest you can do that? We require a few days' notice. The earliest shut-off date would be— I don't want a shut-off date, I said, my analyst voice kicking in. I want a transfer of liability. The service can continue, but my name and my financial obligation must end. Please check your terms of service. I am giving you my notice of termination as the account holder. A long pause. Clicking. Okay, ma'am. It looks like we can schedule the account to revert. The new owners will need to call us with their payment information and social security number to avoid a service interruption. If they don't, the power will be cut. Perfect, I said. What is the effective date? The system will process the transfer on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Right before Thanksgiving week. Beautiful. Please schedule it, I said. I repeated the exact same process with Apex Broadband. Another hour on the phone, the same result. Internet revert Sunday, 11:59 p.m. If they don't call, if they don't provide a new card and pass a credit check, the connection drops. Third, the phone. This was the most complex. My number was tangled up with theirs. I couldn't just cancel the plan. I would lose my number, my contacts, my 2FA link. I had to perform a port out. I drove to a different T-Mobile store, one across town. Hi, I said to the rep. I am the primary account holder on a family plan. I need to separate my line from that plan and start a new, individual account, effective today. I will be porting my number. The rep, a kid with bright blue hair, nodded. Okay, total atomization. We can do that. It's going to leave the other lines on the original account, but the monthly cost for them won't change. That's fine, I said. They can manage it. Okay, so, your new plan is the cheapest one you have, just me, single line, basic data. It took 20 minutes. I signed a new contract. My phone buzzed, rebooted, and was free. One more thing, I said, as the rep handed me my new SIM receipt. On the old account, the one I am no longer part of, I want a security note added. As the former primary, I am flagging it. Please note that the new account administrator, whoever it defaults to, must verify their identity in person, with 2 forms of ID, before making any changes, adding new lines, or upgrading devices. No phone authorizations. The rep's eyes widened. That's stringent. It's necessary, I said. There has been unauthorized activity. He typed for a full minute. Done. That account is locked down. I left the store. My phone felt lighter in my hand. Fourth, the gas card. This was simple. I called the number on the back of my credit card. Hi, I need to report a secondary card, number ending in 4228, as stolen and canceled immediately. Stolen. Ma'am, by whom? I don't know. I lied. But I am looking at the charges, and I am disputing all gas purchases made in the last 90 days as fraudulent. The card was canceled in under 3 minutes. Aunt Patrice's free ride was over. Column 2 was complete. Column 3, communication. Marisol was right. I couldn't just let it happen in silence. I had to document, to inform, not for their sake, but for mine. To prove I had done my due diligence, I opened a new, blank email. Subject action required. Brookridge Utilities and Apex Broadband accounts to Victor, Thomas Gmail.com, Elaine, net. Dear Victor and Elaine, this email is to formally notify you that as of Sunday, date, at 11:59 p.m., I have terminated my financial and legal responsibility for the utility and internet services at 1255 Oakwood Drive. To avoid a service interruption, you must contact both the Brookridge Utility Commission and Apex Broadband immediately to set up service in your own names. They will require your Social Security number and a valid payment method for a deposit. Here is their contact information. I listed the phone numbers and website links. I opened a second email. Subject: important information regarding T-Mobile Family Plan. To all 5 family emails, including Carter's, Dear all, this is to notify you that I have ported my personal number ending in XXX to a separate individual account. The family plan under my name has been dissolved. The remaining lines on the account are still active, but the account is now pending a new administrator. One of you will need to contact T-Mobile to take over financial responsibility for the plan. Please be advised, due to security concerns, T-Mobile will require you to go to a physical store with 2 forms of valid identification to make any changes. All future billing is now the responsibility of the new account administrator. I kept both drafts. I did not send them. I clicked Schedule Send. I set the send date for Monday morning at 9 a.m., the day after the cutoff, the day the panic would truly begin. I created one last spreadsheet. I titled it, Action Log Thomas Family. I logged every action I had taken. November 18th, 9:15 a.m. Froze Experian Credit Report. November 18th, 9:20 a.m. Froze TransUnion Credit Report. November 18th, 10:30 a.m. Filed FTC Identity Theft Affidavit. November 18th, 11:15 a.m. Call with BUC, scheduled liability transfer for Sunday, 11:59 p.m. November 18th, 12:45 p.m. Call with Apex, scheduled liability transfer for Sunday, 11:59 p.m. November 18th, 2:10 p.m. In-person T-Mobile, ported personal number, added in-person verification requirement to old account. November 18th, 2:45 p.m. Canceled Aunt Patrice's gas card. Disputed charges. I noted the time zone. I noted the names of the customer service reps I spoke to. Brenda, Kevin, blue-haired kid. Finally, I went back to Staples. I bought a new binder. A binder 2.0. This one was not for evidence of the past. It was for the future. Into this binder, I printed my scheduled emails. I printed the How to Set Up Autopay PDF from the BUC website. I printed the Understanding Your T-Mobile Bill FAQ. This binder wasn't for me. It was for them. It was a termination package, a severance. Binder 1 held the evidence of my compliance. Binder 2 held the instructions for their independence. I placed it on my coffee table. Ready. I had done the analysis. I had built the firewall. I had prepared the documentation. The analyst's work was done. Now, I just had to wait for the system to crash. Thanksgiving Day, I made myself a roast chicken, not a turkey. My small apartment was immaculate. It was quiet. My phone, resting on the coffee table, was not. It lit up at 4 p.m., the beginning of their feast. A stream of notifications from Instagram. I didn't need to open them to know what they were. The filters were always the same. The first was Aunt Patrice, her face softened by a thankful filter, holding up a glass of red wine that I knew, from the shape of the bottle, cost more than $50. The second was Carter. He was filming the table. It was a parade of gross abundance, a 20-pound turkey, steaming mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie. He panned the camera to his new girlfriend, Jessica. The caption read, "My queen, my feast." I watched nothing. I felt nothing. I tapped on Aunt Patrice's profile icon. I hit mute. I tapped on Carter's. Mute. I tapped on Mom's. Mute. I methodically silenced the digital performance. My day would not be punctuated by their manufactured joy. My laptop was open on my dining table, which I had cleared of everything except the computer and a glass of water. My action log Thomas Family spreadsheet was open. Next to it, I had a simple digital clock widget. I was not watching football. I was watching the time. I set a countdown timer on my phone. The alarm was set for 8 p.m. The evening passed. The sun set. The streetlights outside my window cast long shadows on the floor. I ate my chicken. I read a chapter of a book. At 7:59, I sat down at the table and placed my hands on the keyboard. The timer on my phone vibrated. A short, sharp buzz. 8 p.m. I clicked the refresh button on the Apex Broadband account portal. I had been logged into this account for 3 years. The page reloaded. A red banner appeared at the top. Your session has expired. Please log in to continue. I typed in my old memorized password. I hit enter. The username or password you entered is incorrect. Please try again. I closed the tab. At 1255 Oakwood Drive. The router lights had just switched from solid blue to blinking orange. The smart TV, which was certainly streaming the big game, had just frozen. The image of a player mid-throw stuck on the screen. The Wi-Fi signal, the one Carter insisted they upgrade to the gigabit plan, had vanished. The account liability, as I had scheduled, was transferred. It was no longer mine. To turn it back on, they would need to call, pass a credit check, and pay a new deposit. 8:05 p.m. My personal email inbox pinged. A new message. It wasn't from family. It was from a machine. Subject action required. Payment method declined for BUC account 44 to 591B. I opened it. Dear Isla Thomas, this is an automated message to inform you that the auto payment for your Brookridge Utility Commission account, scheduled for today, was rejected by the financial institution. Reason payment method canceled or revoked. Please log into your portal immediately to provide a valid payment method to avoid service interruption. The lights at their house were still on. For now, but the clock was ticking. The bill was past due. The first scheduled email I had drafted, the one explaining the transfer, wouldn't even be sent until Monday morning. They were operating completely in the dark. 8:11 p.m. This was the T-Mobile action. The port out of my number, which I had completed in the store, was now fully processed by the central system. The family plan I had created was now, officially, administrator-less. I imagined the phones, all of them, in the middle of their dinner, Mom's, Dad's, Aunt Patrice's, Carter's, and the 2 iPads, all at once. They would receive a system-generated text message. T-Mobile alert. The primary account holder for your plan has changed. Please log in or visit a store to verify your account information and confirm your line. The panic would be immediate. The confusion. What does this mean? They would try to log in, but they didn't have the password. They would try to call, but I had blocked them from making changes by phone. They would have to go to a physical store with 2 forms of valid identification. On Thanksgiving night, all the stores were closed. They were stranded on a digital island. I had just sailed away in the only boat. 8:19 p.m. I was doing one final sweep. I went to the T-Mobile portal and tried my old login, just to see. My access was still active. For a few more minutes, I went to the Data Usage tab. I wanted one last look at that mysterious tablet, the one Mom had brushed off. Device Apple iPad Pro 12.9. Data used this cycle, 42 gigabytes. I clicked Device Details, and there it was. Surprise number 2. Last pinged IP address, 72.1144.35.1. I knew that IP prefix. It wasn't my parents' house. Theirs was a Comcast IP, starting with 68. I copied the IP address and pasted it into a search. The block was registered to Brookridge Luxury Towers Management, Carter's apartment building. My blood went cold. He wasn't just using my plan when he visited his parents. The tablet was his home internet. He was living in a luxury high-rise, showing off his new watch, and stealing 40 gigabytes of data a month from me to stream his football games and run his life. I took a screenshot. I saved the file to my desktop. I dragged it into the Binder 2.0 folder. 8:25 p.m. My phone buzzed. A real call. The name on the screen flashed Aunt Patrice. I looked at the clock. She must be at the pump. She must have finished her dinner, packed up her leftovers, and headed out for her post-feast fill-up, the one she always took. She would have put the nozzle in her car. Selected regular, and swiped the shell card I paid for. Card canceled. Not declined, not insufficient funds, canceled. I pressed the silence button on the side of my phone. The call stopped ringing and went to voicemail. I pictured her, standing in the cold, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the Shell station, yelling at the pump, as if it had personally insulted her. The phone immediately buzzed again. Aunt Patrice? Silence. Buzzed again. Aunt Patrice? Silence. 8:33 p.m. A text message, this time from Dad. Isla. Something's wrong with the TV. The network just cut out. The football game is on. Are you paying the internet bill? Are you paying the internet bill? Not, is the internet down? Not, can you help us figure this out? It was a direct, immediate assumption of my role, my function. The budget police, asleep at the switch, the idiot who forgot to pay. I looked at the message. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I locked the phone. I did not reply. 8:40 p.m. A new text. This time, Mom. It was a picture. A white styrofoam container, the cheap kind, sagging with congealed gravy and what looked like the driest slices of turkey. We saved you a plate, the message read. It's on the porch. We missed you. The lie was so profound, so utterly shameless. It almost made me laugh. This wasn't an olive branch. This was a probe, a test. They were pinging the network. Is she still our daughter? Or is she just the bank? They were waiting for me to text back. Thank you, Mom. That's so sweet. And then they would reply. Great. Honey, now fix the internet. I swiped the notification away. I did not reply. 9:02 p.m. My laptop pinged. A new email. The big one. The mortgage. The $1,400 payment I had co-signed for. The auto payment that I had logged in and manually canceled the night before. The email was from Bank of Brookridge. Alert your scheduled auto payment for account. 901B. In the amount of $1,400 has been canceled as per your request. The payment was officially due on the 1st, but the system was scheduled to draft it tonight, on the 24th, to ensure it cleared. I had canceled the authorization. The system was now sending its final failure notice. I logged into my bank portal. The mortgage line item, which for 18 months had shown as scheduled, now read, pending manual payment required. They wouldn't know. Not tonight. They wouldn't know until the bank called them, or until the first late notices started. The ones that would be mailed to their house, but addressed to me. 9:10 p.m. My phone lit up. An Instagram story notification. It was Carter. I had muted his stories, but not his posts. This was a direct post. It wasn't a picture of food. It was a black screen with white text. Loyalty isn't something you can buy. Real family doesn't send a bill. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He posted this using his phone's data, a line I was still technically paying for another 8 hours. He typed this message while stealing my gigabytes at his apartment. I tapped his profile. Mute posts. Mute stories. Muted. 9:12 p.m. The phone rang. Dad? I silenced it. My kettle, the one from last night, clicked to a boil. I walked to the kitchen, my movements calm and measured. I poured the hot water over an Earl Grey tea bag. I breathed in the bergamot steam. The phone rang again. Mom! I silenced it. It rang again. Aunt Patrice? I silenced it. The first call, the first of many. They were gathered in the living room. The game was off. The Wi-Fi was dead. Their phones were blowing up with security alerts. Aunt Patrice was back from the gas station, empty-handed and furious. They were realizing this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a glitch. This was an action. This was a choice. 11:59 p.m. I was at my desk. The tea was cold. My phone screen was dark, but the notification log showed 19 missed calls. I had one final task, the master link, the authorization that allowed Bank of Brookridge to draft from my primary checking account for the mortgage. I had canceled the payment, but I had not yet canceled the link between the accounts. It was the last thread. I logged into my personal bank. I went to external accounts. I saw the mortgage account listed. Authorized for auto draft. My finger hovered over the revoke button. The football game was long over. The dishes were piled in the sink. The house was dark. Or maybe the lights were flickering, unpaid. The panic was settling in. The clock on my laptop ticked to 11:59. I clicked the button. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to permanently cancel this authorization? I clicked confirm. A small green checkmark appeared. Authorization revoked. The last switch was flipped. The line was cut. I closed the laptop. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. The absolute setting, the one that let nothing through. I went to bed. I woke up on Friday morning to a graveyard of notifications. 43 missed calls from 5 different numbers. A dozen texts, ranging from Dad's confused, Isla, call me, the internet is down, to Mom's increasingly frantic, Isla, this isn't funny, turn the power back on, and finally, answer your phone, you ungrateful child. I ignored them all. The emotional outburst was just noise. I was an analyst, and my audit was not complete. Cutting them off was phase 1. Understanding the full scope of the liability was phase 2. I had a feeling the hardware store and the tablet were just the visible parts of the iceberg. I made coffee, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. It was time to go deeper. My credit freezes were active. My fraud alerts were in place. I logged into my full credit report, the official one I pulled annually. I scrolled past my student loans, past my now canceled credit cards, until I found the collection account, Brookridge Builders Supply, opened 5 years ago. Balance $2,300. But this time, I looked closer. I clicked account details. The primary name was mine, Isla Thomas, but the secondary contact, or authorized user, was not Victor or Elaine Thomas. The name listed was Elaine L. Just the initial. I frowned. My mother's maiden name was Lawrence. She never used Elaine L. It was a deliberate, slight obfuscation. It was just enough to look like a clerical error. But it was an intentional choice. She had known, even 5 years ago, that she was doing something she had to hide. That was the old debt. I was more interested in the new ones. I went back to the T-Mobile account, using the last few minutes of my old login before the system kicked me out completely. I pulled the full, itemized billing statement for the last 6 months. I exported it as a PDF. I wasn't just looking at the total cost. I was looking at the data usage patterns. I focused on the line for the iPad Pro, the one that pinged from Carter's apartment. The data usage was not random. It wasn't just streaming movies at night. There was a clear, undeniable pattern. Every weekday, Monday through Friday, data consumption spiked. It started at almost exactly 9 a.m. and continued steadily until just after 5 p.m. It was a 9-to-5 data consumption. My cousin Carter, the sales star, was not just using my data plan for entertainment. He was using it to run his entire workday. He was running his logistics job off my hotspot, likely telling his own employer he was working from a secure home connection while tethering to my account, all while I paid the bill. The system still had logs. I clicked on View Hotspot History. A new window opened, showing IP addresses and data stamps. Most were from his apartment's IP block, but there were others. I recognized the address of his luxury gym. Brookridge Elite Fitness. He was streaming, or maybe even working, from the treadmill. I checked another log. The email notifications for the T-Mobile account. Every month, an email, "Your bill is ready," was sent to my email, but a copy was also sent to a second address. I didn't recognize it. CT Logistics Prague Mail, com. Carter Thomas, Logistics Pro. He was getting a copy of the bill he knew I was paying. He saw the data overages, he saw the cost, and he let me pay it. Next, the power bill. I had the PDFs from Brookridge Utilities saved for my tax records. I opened the statement from 2 months ago. I wasn't an electrician, but I knew how to read a utility bill. I scrolled past the cost per kilowatt hour and looked at the equipment and service charges. There it was, a small, strange line item. High draw equipment surcharge, $4,500. I had seen this before and assumed it was an air conditioning spike in the summer, but this was from October. It was cold. I Googled the code listed next to the charge, BUCHD44A. The search results were immediate. The code was a residential surcharge for non-standard high-amperage equipment. The examples listed were kilns, industrial freezers, or a 22-volt welder, a welder, my father, Victor, was an accountant. He couldn't change a light bulb. Who was welding in their garage? A memory surfaced, Carter, at Christmas, bragging about a little side project he had. Building custom bike frames, he had laughed and said, "It's amazing what you can make in your spare time." My fingers typed out a note in my action log spreadsheet, in a new tab labeled Hidden Liabilities. Note: Carter appears to be running a side business bike frame welding out of Mom and Dad's garage, using my subsidized electricity to power his high-draw equipment. This explains the $45 surcharge. He wasn't just a parasite, he was a colony. He had burrowed into every utility I paid for, using my parents as a shield, and was running 2 separate business ventures on my dime. The anger was cold and sharp. I moved to the last and largest account, the mortgage. I was a cosigner. That meant I had full access. I logged into the Bank of Brookridge portal. I went to account settings and then notification preferences. The primary email address on the account, the one that received all notices, all payment confirmations, and crucially, all late payment warnings, was not my email. It was not my father's email. It was not my mother's email. It was family proxy, funds Gmail, a burner, an alias. My blood ran colder. This was not negligence. This was not forgetting to pay. This was a structured, deliberate deception. Carter had created a fake email address to act as a buffer. He had set this up so that he would be the only person to see if the mortgage payment was late. He was intercepting the bank's communications to stop my parents from ever seeing a past due notice. This meant he knew, for 18 months, that they were not paying. He had built a system to ensure the financial distress signals never reached them. They just reached him, and he, in turn, would call me with some new story about Dad's pension or a bank error, and I, the idiot, would fix it. I was not just the bank, I was the bank, and he was the fraudulent loan officer, managing the account so the lenders never found out the clients were broke. Then, the final, sinking stone. Surprise number 3, I went back to the T-Mobile account portal. I navigated to Account History Authorizations, and I saw it. Carter Thomas, added as authorized user on date. The date was 2 years ago. My mother had not just added his line. She had given him power. An authorized user could make changes to the account. They could add lines. They could upgrade devices. They could consent to adding an iPad Pro. I had never given permission for this. I called T-Mobile. "Hi," I said. My voice clipped. "I am the primary account holder on. I was, until yesterday. I need a copy of the service agreement from 2 years ago, specifically the digital consent form for adding Carter Thomas as an authorized user." "Ma'am, you're no longer on that account. I am disputing a fraudulent charge from when I was the owner. I need the consent form I allegedly signed. Now." The rep put me on hold. 5 minutes later, an email hit my inbox. "Your requested documents." I opened the PDF. It was a standard e-signature form. I, Isla Thomas, consent to add Carter Thomas as an authorized user, and at the bottom, a shaky, pixelated signature. Isla Thomas. It was not my signature. It was not even a good forgery. The I was too looped. The T was too sharp. It was my mother's handwriting, trying to be mine. My stomach twisted. This was the line. This was the bright, uncrossable line. This was a felony. My phone buzzed. A new email. This one was from the Experian Fraud Alert System. "Dear Ms. Thomas, we have received your FTC identity theft affidavit regarding the Brookridge Builders supply account. Our system has cross-referenced the digital signature on that application from 5 years ago with the T-Mobile consent form from 2 years ago. Our analysis indicates a high probability of digital signature forgery across both accounts. Your case has been escalated. The machine had found it. The system saw the pattern. The machine knew. I took a screenshot of the forged signature. I saved the email from Experian. I saved the PDF of the T-Mobile consent form. I saved the screenshot of Carter's burner email address for the mortgage. I saved the screenshot of the welder's surcharge. I opened my Binder 2.0 folder on my desktop. I created a new subfolder. I titled it Legal. I dragged every new file into it. I sat back, my hands trembling, but not with rage. It was with a terrible, cold clarity. My phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. "How is the audit?" I texted back. "It's worse. It's not just dependency. It's fraud. She forged my signature." "A beat," she replied. "Facts, Isla, not feelings. This is a deposition. Stick to the facts. No attacks. Just the data. What's your next move?" She was right. Emotion was a liability. The data was the asset. I looked at the folder labeled Legal. This was no longer a family squabble. This was not about a missed Thanksgiving dinner. This was a systematic, multi-year financial conspiracy. I was done with texts. I was done with phone calls. I picked up my phone. I went to my calendar. I created a new event. Meeting. I invited 2 people, Mom and Dad. Location, 1255 Oakwood Drive. The kitchen. Time. Sunday, noon. In the notes section, I typed one sentence. "We need to discuss the mortgage and the T-Mobile account. Carter is not invited." I hit send. I used my old key. It still worked. I let myself into the house I was paying for. It was exactly noon on Sunday. They were waiting for me at the kitchen table, the one I had eaten breakfast at every day for 18 years of my life. The room was cold. The air hung thick and sour with the smell of old, burnt coffee. Overhead, the long fluorescent tube in the ceiling fixture buzzed, a high-pitched, anxious sound. It flickered, casting a sick, wavering light on their faces. My father, Victor, did not look up when I walked in. He was rubbing his forehead, a slow, deep, circular motion, as if trying to erase a headache that had taken up permanent residence. His shoulders were slumped. He looked exhausted. My mother, Elaine, sat bolt upright. Her spine was rigid. Her hands were clasped so tightly on the Formica tabletop that her knuckles were white. She was a fortress, bracing for an assault. Her eyes, however, darted to me, sharp and defensive. I did not sit down. I stood at the head of the table, the traditional spot for my father. I placed my briefcase on the worn linoleum floor and took out 2 white vinyl binders. The first one was heavy, thick. I placed it on the table between them. The sound it made was not loud, but it was solid, an irrefutable thud that broke the buzzing silence. This was binder 1, the evidence. I unclipped the 3 rings. The metal snapped open. "I am here," I said, and my voice was flat, devoid of the anger and humiliation I had felt. This was not a daughter speaking. It was an analyst. To review the accounts, I opened the binder to the first tab, marked Mortgage. I turned the binder so they could both see. It was not a complex document. It was a simple spreadsheet I had printed. It had 3 columns and 36 rows. "This is the payment history for this house," I said. "Column A is the payment due date. Column B is the amount. Column C is the source of payment. For the last 18 months, 36 payments, every single payment has been drafted from my primary checking account." My father flinched. He finally looked up, not at me, but at the paper. His eyes were watery, confused. 18 months, he whispered. His voice was papery. He looked at Elaine, lost. "Elaine, I thought Carter was helping with that. He told me he was managing the proxy account." "He was managing it," I said. "He just wasn't funding it. I flipped the page. Tab 2, Apex Broadband. I slid the printout across the table. "This is the internet plan you all rely on. This is the data usage log for the last 6 months. Specifically, this line, I pointed. The iPad Pro. It has consumed an average of 40 gigabytes per month. And this, I pointed to the next line, is the IP address where that data was consumed. It is not this house. It is Brookridge Luxury Towers. It is Carter's apartment. My father sank back in his chair. He said he needed it for his work when he visited. He was running his entire job from his apartment. On my bill, I said. I flipped the page again. Tab 3, Brookridge Utilities. This was the electric bill. You'll see a recurring $45 surcharge. It's for high-draw equipment. Specifically, I tapped the billing code. A 22-volt welder. Victor's mouth fell open. The bike frames. He said he was just storing some bike parts in the garage. He was running a side business out of your garage, I said. Powered by my electricity. My gaze shifted, landing fully on my mother for the first time. Her rigid posture had not changed, but her breathing was shallow. Her jaw was set. Carter was able to do all of this, I continued, my voice dropping, because he had administrative access, which brings me to tab 4, T-Mobile. I pulled a single sheet of paper from its plastic sleeve. I did not slide it. I placed it directly in front of her. This is the consent form, dated 2 years ago, adding Carter Thomas as an authorized user to my account, an authorization I never gave. My mother's hand started to tremble. It was a small, betraying vibration against the tabletop. It was just to get the discount. Isla, she stammered, the words rushing out. It was cheaper, on the family plan. He said he would handle the details. You signed my name, I said. The words hung in the air. The buzzing of the fluorescent bulb seemed to get louder, filling the space. You signed my name, Mom. I let the accusation settle. I watched her fortress crumble, not into tears, but into a stark, trapped silence. She stared at the paper, at the shaky, looped forgery of my signature. This, I said, sliding the final piece of evidence from the binder, is the fraud analysis from Experian and the FTC. It flags this signature and the signature on the hardware store account from 5 years ago as high-probability digital forgeries. They're investigating. My father let out a low sound, a soft moan of, "Oh, God." My mother said nothing. She had been caught, not in a family lie, but in a federal crime, and in that terrible, heavy silence. The doorbell rang. My mother jumped, a small, guilty spasm. Her eyes darted to the hallway. Of course, she had called him. She had warned him. She could not face her auditor alone. My father looked at the door, then at me, his expression pleading. Isla, please. I did not move. I did not speak. I waited. We heard the front door open. We heard the heavy, confident footsteps on the hardwood. Carter appeared in the kitchen doorway. He was already wearing his expensive wool coat, the Sales Star armor, ready for battle. He looked at me, standing at the head of the table. He looked at my father, who looked broken. He looked at my mother, who looked trapped. His eyes finally landed on the open binder, on the spreadsheets and the highlighted forgery. His mask of easy charm vanished. His face hardened into something I had never seen before, something cold and genuinely mean. Isla, he said, his voice a low, threatening growl. What are you doing to them? I am presenting my findings, I said. You're terrorizing them, he snapped. He took a proprietary step into the room, as if it were his. They are your parents. You can't just cut them off. You can't just leave them like this, with no power, no internet, no phones. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I looked at him. The man who stole my data, the man who used my credit, the man who built his entire life on my compliance, all while using his parents as human shields. I'm not leaving them, Carter, I said. My voice was calm. It was the calm of a finalized balance sheet. I'm leaving them as adults, responsible for their own bills. Something you have actively prevented for years, he scoffed, a short, ugly sound. And how are they supposed to do that? You think your father knows how to set up an online bill. You're just dumping this on them. No, I said. I reached into my briefcase. I pulled out the second binder, binder 2.0. It was thin, clean, and organized. I did not place it in front of me. I slid it across the table, a smooth, final motion, until it stopped directly in front of my father. Victor stared at it. The cover was simple. Account Transition Guide. That, I said, is binder 2.0. It contains the instructions. It has the phone number for the Brookridge Utility Commission. It has the step-by-step PDF, with screenshots, on how to set up their own auto pay. It has the direct number for the Apex Broadband Transfer Department. It has the T-Mobile store locations and the exact identification requirements they will need to create a new plan. You printed them a manual. Carter's voice was filled with disbelief. That's insane. It's a severance package, I said. I turned back to binder 1. I methodically, calmly, began placing the evidence pages back into their plastic sleeves. The mortgage log, the IP address report, the welder's surcharge, the forgery analysis. I snapped the 3 rings shut. The sound was loud in the small room. I looked at my mother and father. I felt nothing, no rage, no sadness, just the vast, cold quiet of a zeroed-out account. I am not asking for the money back, I said. The thousands of dollars, the fraud, the identity theft, I am not reporting any of it to the police. My mother's head snapped up, a flicker of desperate relief in her eyes. I am, I continued. Considering the tens of thousands of dollars I have paid for this family to be my final, full payment for my childhood, we are even. I picked up binder 1, the evidence. I placed it in my briefcase and zipped it shut. I left binder 2, the instructions, on the table. I'm done, I said. I turned. I walked out of the kitchen. I walked past Carter, who stood frozen in the doorway. I walked down the hall, opened the front door, and stepped out into the cold November air, leaving the 3 of them behind under the flickering, buzzing light. I hadn't even reached my car. I was halfway down their driveway, the gravel crunching under my shoes. When the phone in my pocket began to vibrate, it wasn't a single notification. It was a sustained, frantic, digital seizure. The system was in shock. I got into the driver's seat, shut the door, and the sound of the car's interior was immediately filled with the angry buzz, buzz, buzz from my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen was a chaotic waterfall of failed connections. The first was a text, a private one, not from the group, from Dad. Isla, I am so sorry. I didn't know the half of it. I am sorry we made you into a wallet. A wallet? The word was so blunt, so honest. It almost took my breath away. It was an admission, but it was also a confession without repentance. It was a plea for absolution, not a promise of change. I felt a small, cold pang of what might have been pity, but I did not reply. The next stream was from Mom, a rapid-fire assault, each message sent seconds after the last. You can't just walk out like that. You have humiliated your father. You think you're better than us with that binder. Don't you dare tell anyone about this. Don't you dare shame this family, Isla. I stared at the last message. Shame the family. I hadn't spoken to a soul except Marisol. I hadn't posted a thing. She wasn't afraid of what I had done. She was terrified of what I knew. She was terrified of the neighbors finding out, of the facade cracking, of the performance ending. The mask was her most valuable asset. I started the car. The low rumble of the engine was a welcome noise. As I pulled away from the curb, a new notification lit up from the Thomas Clan Updates group chat, the one where I had been dismissed. It was Carter. Hey, can someone please help Aunt Elaine with the Apex Broadband website? She can't log in and the instructions your sister left are confusing. I watched the screen. I saw the read receipts appear. Aunt Patrice, Uncle Ron, nothing, no reply. This was the new reality. For years, I was the network's central tower, boosting everyone's signal, connecting their calls, routing their data. Now, the tower was down. They were all on their own, stranded in a digital dead zone, trying to find a signal, And Carter, the one who had always enjoyed the strongest, fastest connections stolen directly from me, was discovering that he, too, had no bars. The silence in that chat was absolute. My phone buzzed again. An Instagram notification. Aunt Patrice. She had posted a new image to her feed. It was a stock photo of a beach at sunset, overlaid with text in a flowing script. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. Some people are just noise and static. It was a classic passive-aggressive maneuver, the kind she usually reserved for a coworker who took her parking spot. But this time, it was different. For the first time in memory, she had not tagged me. She hadn't mentioned me in the comments. She was firing a shot, but she was too afraid to aim it. She knew I had the evidence. She knew I had the legal folder. She was just making noise, hoping I wouldn't fire back. I ignored the post. I got back to my apartment. I sat in the parking garage for a full minute, the engine off, just letting the barrage hit my phone. Ping, an email. It was an automated forward from the Brookridge Utility Commission. The final notice. Subject, final notice. Service interruption scheduled. Dear resident, payment for your Brookridge Utility Commission account is now 5 days past due. Your service is scheduled for disconnection on Tuesday, November 28th, if payment is not received in full. Tuesday. They had 48 hours. Ping, a new text message, from Dad. Isla, the electric company just sent a shut-off notice. I have your binder. I'm on the website you listed. It's asking for a payment method. What do I do? How do I pay this online? This was the moment, the critical test. He wasn't asking me to pay it. He was asking how. It was the smallest, most pathetic, most significant step toward independence he had ever taken. The old Isla, the wallet, would have sighed, grabbed the phone, and just paid it to make the anxiety stop. I sat there. My fingers were steady. I did not call. I did not log in for him. I typed, "You need to enter your own credit card or debit card number into the fields on that screen." I hit send. A long, agonizing pause. Ping. "I don't know my card number by heart." I typed, "Then you need to get your wallet." I locked the phone. I was not his daughter. I was not his bank. I was tech support, and my session was over. I walked into my apartment and dropped my keys in the bowl. My apartment was silent, clean, and paid for. My laptop was waiting. I opened it. I had new mail. The first was from the Experian Fraud Division. Dear Ms. Thomas, we have concluded the preliminary review of your identity theft affidavit case. Regarding the Brookridge Builders Supply account and the T-Mobile authorization, our analysis confirms high probability forgery across both applications. We have filed the necessary reports with the relevant creditors and placed an extended 7-year fraud alert on your file. Please be advised that the creditors, Brookridge Builders Supply and T-Mobile, may choose to pursue legal action against the identified perpetrators to recover their losses. Pursue legal action against the identified perpetrators. They wouldn't be coming after me. They would be coming after her, my mother. I saved the email. PDF. I filed it in the legal folder in my cloud. I had just closed the email when a different notification popped up. LinkedIn. A message request from a name I didn't recognize. Marcus Fry. I opened it. Dear Ms. Thomas, this is going to seem very strange. My name is Marcus Fry. I am the property manager for the lofts at Riverbend. I see from your profile that you are related to a Carter Thomas. We had him as a tenant for 2 years, before he moved to the luxury towers. My heart rate quickened. Where was this going? Mr. Thomas was a difficult tenant, but the reason I am messaging you is an email address. When he was applying, he listed a family agent to handle his application fee and deposit. The email was Elaine, El Proxy Financial, com. He said it was his mother, a financial manager, who was handling an estate payment for him. He used this to get a family hardship concession on his deposit and deferred rent twice, claiming his family fund was locked up. Elaine, El Proxy Financial, com. It wasn't just my name they were faking. Carter had invented a fake professional email alias for my mother to use as leverage with his old landlord. He had invented a family hardship to get out of paying his own bills. This was surprise number 5. The man hadn't just built his life on my money, he had built it on a complex, layered foundation of lies, using my mother's identity, my identity, whichever identity suited him, as a disposable tool. The rot wasn't just about me, it was their entire way of life. I typed a polite, non-committal reply. Thank you for this information. Mr. Fry, I am currently reviewing my family's financial activities, and this is very helpful. I screenshotted the entire conversation, saved it, filed it. I did not post it. I did not send it to Carter. Public shaming was my mother's tactic. Mine was documentation. The rest of the day, the phone was a constant, vibrating burden on my coffee table. The missed call count on my lock screen climbed. 23, Aunt Patrice, Uncle Ron, Mom, 41, Dad, trying again, Mom, on repeat, 63, a flurry of calls from all of them, one after another, as the reality set in. They were trapped. The walls were closing in. At 5 p.m., a familiar notification, a picture text from Mom. It was another white styrofoam container, this time with a single, dried-out pork chop and some corn. Your father and I made dinner. We saved you a plate. It's on the porch. The exact same tactic as Thanksgiving. The "we missed you" love bomb. The attempt to plug the cable back in, to see if the connection was still live. I looked at the text. I looked at the missed call counter, which now showed 68. I archived the message. I did not reply. I did not go to my porch. The food could rot. The calls continued all evening, a desperate, failing signal. They were losing me. They knew they were losing me. By the time I went to bed, by the time I put my phone on the charger and silenced it for the night, the lock screen read 87 missed calls. I remained intentionally, strategically, silent. The blackout was complete. Monday morning, 9 a.m. The scheduled emails I had sent earlier were hitting their inboxes, redundant and sterile. Just as I was knocking on their front door, I had initiated this meeting. After the 87 call barrage on Sunday, my phone had gone silent. A deep, terrified silence. I had sent one text, "My office or your kitchen, tomorrow at 9. We finalize the accounts. No Carter." Dad had replied in seconds, "Here, please." My father opened the door before I finished my second knock. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. His eyes were red-rimmed. His flannel robe was stained with coffee. He looked, for the first time in his life, truly old. My mother was already at the table. She wasn't rigid this time. She was crumpled. She sat hunched over a cold mug of coffee. Her hair uncombed. The fortress had been shelled. The fight was gone. The buzzing fluorescent light, which I now realized they simply didn't know how to fix, flickered over her. "The power is still on," I observed, not as a question, but as a statement. "It shuts off tomorrow," Dad whispered, pulling out a chair for me. I did not sit. I remained standing, briefcase in hand. "This won't take long. I am not here to relitigate the past. I am here to finalize the transfer of liability and inform you of the legal proceedings." The word "legal" made my mother's head snap up. Her eyes were wide with a new, sharper fear. I opened my briefcase. I did not pull out the binders. I pulled out 3 clean, simple printouts, stapled in the corner. It was the executive summary of their ruin. "Item 1, I said, placing the first printout in the center of the table. "The legal status. As of Friday, I filed identity theft affidavits with all 3 credit bureaus regarding the Brookridge Builders supply account and the fraudulent T-Mobile authorization. I have an email." I tapped the paper. "From the Experian Fraud Division. They have concluded their analysis. They confirmed high-probability forgery across both accounts." My mother made a small, choking sound. "This means," I continued, "that an extended 7-year fraud alert is now on my file. More importantly, it means they have opened a formal investigation into the perpetrators. That is you, Mom, the creditor, T-Mobile has been notified of the felony. They may choose to pursue this. This is now out of my hands. It is a legal matter. Dad looked at Mom, his face a mask of pale confusion. Elaine, what? Forgery. My mother just stared at the paper, her hand shaking so badly she spilled her cold coffee on the table. She didn't seem to notice. Item 2, I said, placing the second printout on the table. Carter's Hidden Debts. I had formatted this one as a simple chart. It was titled Financial Drain Attributable to Carter Thomas, managed via accounts billed to Isla Thomas. This is the summary of the audit I presented to you yesterday. The one Carter interrupted. My voice was a monotone. Column A, the hidden electrical cost, a $45 surcharge, monthly, for 22-volt welding equipment. He was operating a private business from your garage. I have been paying for his manufacturing costs for approximately 24 months, total $1,080. Dad stared at the number. 1,000. Column B, the stolen data, the iPad Pro, pinging from his luxury apartment, consuming an average of 40 gigabytes per month. I have estimated the cost of this, based on overage fees and plan premiums, to be approximately $75 a month, total $900 over the last year alone. And column C, I said, my voice hardening. The mortgage alias. This is the burner email address. Family proxy, funds gmail.com, that Carter created, the one he told you he was managing. It was set up to intercept all past due notices from the bank. It was designed to keep you, Dad, in the dark about the fact that the mortgage was not being paid, so that he could repeatedly call me to fix the bank error. This was not negligence. This was a deliberate, long-term conspiracy to defraud me, using you as a shield. My father's face, which had been pale with confusion, was now flushing a dark, blotchy red. He looked at the paper, at the alias, family, proxy, funds, and his breathing became shallow. He wasn't looking at my mother. He was staring at the name Carter. My father began, his voice a hoarse whisper. He told me that was the bank's official email for the fund. He said it was complicated. My mother was rocking, very slightly, in her chair. He knows computers. Victor, he was just trying to help. He was helping himself, I stated. Which leads to item 3. I did not have a printout for this. I just had a question. Dad, the mortgage is co-signed by me. The bank accounts are yours. He could not have set up that alias or managed those payments without access to your bank account. Did you give him your password? My father's face crumpled. He looked down at his hands on the table. This was it. The final mask. Surprise number 6. He took me to the bank, Dad confessed, his voice cracking. It was last year, right after the pension thing. He said he would set everything up to make it automatic and easier for me. He said I should make him an authorized user on the main checking account, just to monitor the mortgage payment for me. My mother closed her eyes. He had me sign papers, Dad continued, the words tumbling out in a rush of shame. A lot of papers. He said it was just bank policy, just standard authorization. I didn't read them. Isla. He said it was to protect the house. I just signed where he told me to sign. He hadn't just been a fool. He had been a willing accomplice, charmed into signing away his own authority and mine. Carter wasn't just siphoning power and data. He had direct access to my father's bank account. He was the fox, guarding the henhouse, and he had convinced the farmer to give him the keys. So he has full access, I said. It wasn't a question. I think so, Dad whispered, defeated. I reached into my briefcase one last time. I pulled out a single sheet of paper and a pen. I slid it in front of him. It was not a chart. It was a formal letter template. This, I said, is a letter to Bank of Brookridge. It is a formal notarized revocation of authorization. It immediately revokes any and all power of attorney, authorized user, or account manager status from Carter Thomas on all accounts associated with your name, Victor Thomas. It also requests new passwords and new account numbers. This is your only firewall. Dad stared at it. This was the choice, me or him. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was thin, rattling with despair. "Isla, please," she whimpered. You're tearing this family apart. He's your cousin. I just wanted everything to be smooth." The word hit me. Smooth. Smooth for whom? Mom? I asked. My voice was no longer flat. It was cold. Was it smooth for me when I drained my savings at 23? Was it smooth for me when you forged my name on a credit application? Was it smooth for me working to pay for a welder and a tablet and a mortgage, only to be called an idiot and be banned from Thanksgiving? Was any of that smooth? She had no answer. She just wept, quiet, gasping sobs. "You didn't want it smooth," I said. "You wanted it easy, and I was the one who made it easy." I pushed the letter closer to my father. "Carter will drain your checking account the second he feels cornered," I said. "I know this because I have the data. I have the proof of his character. He is not your nephew. He is your primary liability. The fraud investigation into Mom is already active. The only way to show the bank and the bureaus that you are no longer complicit in this fraud is to cut him off. Completely." I tapped the paper. "You will go to the bank. Today, you will get this notarized. You will remove him from every single financial part of your life, or this investigation into Mom will proceed, and I will not lift a finger to stop it." Dad looked at Mom, her face buried in her hands. He looked at the letter. He looked at me, his daughter, the analyst, the wallet that had finally closed. He picked up the pen. "Okay," he said, his voice shaking. "Okay, Isla, we'll do it. We'll go to the bank." My mother's sobs became a low wail. They had agreed. They had finally, officially, agreed to remove him. I nodded, zipped my briefcase, and turned to leave. I had one last thing to say, from the kitchen doorway. "And, just so you know," I said, "I did see the plate you left on the porch, both times. It was a nice gesture. But I don't eat leftovers." This was the day of the extradition. My father had called me, late, after 2 full days of my imposed silence. His voice was a raw nerve, stretched thin. "Isla, Carter is... He knows. Isla, he knows about the bank. He's furious. He's calling a full family meeting. Tonight, at the house, he says we all need to talk this out. He demanded you be there." "I will be there," I said. 7 p.m. I hung up. I knew exactly what this was. It was not a meeting. It was a tribunal. It was Carter's last, desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative, to circle the wagons, to rally Aunt Patrice and Uncle Ron, and to publicly shame me into compliance. He would paint me as the ungrateful, cruel daughter, the budget police gone rogue. He was staging an intervention, not realizing he was the one who was sick. He was walking into a final audit he could not pass. I spent all of Tuesday in my apartment, in my quiet, orderly war room. My laptop was the command center. My first task was the final piece of communication, the extradition email. This one was not a private notification for my parents. This was a public broadcast. I opened a new draft and populated the 2-field Carter. Mom, Dad, Aunt Patrice, Uncle Ron, subject finalization of account liabilities service transition. The body was not an apology. It was not an explanation. It was a corporate memo announcing a divestiture. To all. This email is a final, formal summary of the account changes discussed and the actions taken. 1. As of this week, I am no longer the financial or legal administrator for any utility, telecom, or mortgage accounts associated with the Thomas family. 2. All services power, internet, phone are currently pending disconnection by their respective providers due to non-payment. The final shutoff date for Brookridge Utilities is tomorrow, November 28th, 3. All future billing, service inquiries, and technical support must be directed to the providers. Their contact information is, again, attached. 4. Binder 2.0, the transition guide, containing all necessary step-by-step instructions for establishing your own service, is in the possession of Victor and Elaine. This transfer is permanent and non-negotiable. This account is closed. I attach the PDF of the BUC shutoff notice. I attach the link to the Apex Broadband new customer portal. My finger hovered over the send button. Not yet. This was the air support. It had to arrive at the precise moment of the ground assault. I looked at the clock. The meeting was at 7 p.m. I clicked the arrow next to send. I clicked schedule send. Date today, November 27th. Time, 7:15 p.m. 15 minutes after I was scheduled to walk in. It would land on their phones right when Carter was in the middle of his opening monologue of persecution. Next, I prepared for the meeting itself. I wasn't bringing binders this time. I was bringing the live feed. I organized my legal folder on my desktop, ready for screen sharing. My phone, my new, clean, personal line, would be my hotspot. I would not rely on their non-existent internet. File 1. The action log. Timestamps of every call, every transfer, every password change. File 2. The bank confirmations, the authorization revoked receipts from my father's bank, showing Carter was now locked out. File 3. The T-Mobile forgery. File 4. The Experian fraud escalation email. File 5. The LinkedIn message from Marcus Fry about Carter's other alias. My phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. She knew today was the day. How's the prep for the summit? I texted back. I have the data. I'm ready. Her reply was immediate. Good. Remember facts, not feelings. Be brief. Do not argue. This is not a negotiation. It's a notification. Stick to the facts. Facts? Right. I spent the next hour hardening my own perimeter. I logged into my email settings. I created a new, complex filter. I set up alerts. Any email containing the phrases password reset, authorization request, or account recovery from T-Mobile, Bank of Brookridge, or BUC would be flagged, starred, and trigger an immediate text notification to my phone. If they tried to use my email to regain access, and they would, I would know it the second they hit enter. I clicked confirm on the filter settings. Next, I called the Experian fraud line again. I wanted a status update. Experian Fraud Division. This is Michael. Hello, Michael. My name is Isla Thomas. Case number. I read him the number. I am checking on the status of the forgery investigation. He clicked. Yes, Ms. Thomas. The file has been escalated. The digital signature analysis was conclusive. We are now in the process of cross-referencing the IP addresses associated with the original applications. My blood went cold. The IP addresses? Yes, the original hardware store application 5 years ago, and the T-Mobile authorization 2 years ago. We are checking to see if the IP address that filed those forms matches the address on your file, or another address. Another address? My mother wasn't technical. She wouldn't know how to fake an IP, but Carter, the logistics pro, absolutely would. He was at their house constantly. He was the one who handled the details. Thank you, Michael, I said. That's all I need. This was no longer just about my mother's shaky signature. This was about Carter's digital fingerprints. He hadn't just encouraged the fraud. He had likely been the one to click submit. I hung up. I looked at the clock. 4 p.m. 3 hours to go. My phone rang. T-Mobile. An official number. Not customer service. Hello, Ms. Thomas. This is Sheila from the Fraud and Risk Department. We are following up on the Experian report regarding the account, ending in 554. We see you've ported your line out. That's correct. And we see the fraudulent authorization of Carter Thomas and the addition of an iPad Pro. Serial number. That's also correct. Thank you for confirming. We just wanted to notify you, as the original victim of the fraud, that as per our policy, all devices associated with the fraudulent user have been flagged. A suspension notice has been sent to that device. The user, Mr. Carter Thomas, will have 24 hours to come into a store and prove ownership and financial responsibility for that line, or the device will be permanently bricked from our network. This was it. Surprise number 7. The notice had just been sent. Carter, at his apartment, or his gym, or wherever he was, had just received a message on his iPad. T-Mobile alert. Your service is scheduled for suspension in 24 hours. Please visit a store to verify your identity. He couldn't verify it. The account wasn't his. He was locked out. The tablet he used for his job, for his streaming, for his life, was about to become a $1,200 piece of glass. He wasn't just walking into an ambush tonight. He was walking in wounded. He would be desperate. He would be furious. Good. I finished my preparations. I printed one, final, single sheet of paper. I didn't need a binder. I just needed a cover sheet for the one I had already left there. I changed the font to bold. 72 point. I typed, "From this day forward, I am no longer the family wallet." I looked at the paper. It was my Declaration of Independence. It was the only thing I would be leaving behind tonight. The binder with the instructions was already there, on their table, a silent monolith they had presumably been staring at for 2 days. This new page would be the cover. I looked at the clock. 6:30 p.m. Time to go. I put the single sheet of paper into my briefcase. I put my laptop in its sleeve. I took a deep breath. My heart was not racing. It was steady. It was the calm of an analyst who has triple-checked the data. The calculations were correct. The outcome was assured. My hand was on the doorknob. My apartment was silent. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen lit up. "Mom!" It was the 88th call. It was the final, desperate ping before the meeting, the last attempt to get me on the line, to beg, to plead, to guilt me before Carter had his chance. I pressed the silence button. The call stopped vibrating. I stood there in the quiet of my hallway. I looked at the dark screen of my phone. Then I unlocked it. I went to my email drafts. I saw the scheduled email, the finalization memo. Sitting there, waiting for 7:15 p.m., waiting for me to be in the room. No. I opened the email. I clicked Cancel Send. The email was now just a draft again. This was not an airstrike to be called in mid-battle. This was the declaration of war. They would read it before I arrived. They would be sitting there, absorbing the cold, hard finality of it. When I walked in the door, my thumb hovered over the blue send icon. This was the last button, the last click, the last time I would ever engage with them as a group, as a financial entity. This was the final. Confirm. The phone buzzed again in my hand. Call 89. Mom again. I silenced it. While her call was still ringing, I hit send. The email was gone. It was in their inboxes. I put my phone in my pocket. I opened my door and walked out. The email landed at 7 p.m. on the dot. It detonated in 5 separate inboxes simultaneously. In my mother's house, the notification ping was a disjointed chime of 5 phones, all receiving the same digital execution order. Subject finalization of account liabilities service transition. It was a document of pure fact. It listed the shut-off date for the power tomorrow. It listed the new deposit requirements. It provided the hyperlinks, the account numbers, and the phone trees. It offered no warmth, no negotiation, and no money. In the living room, the scene was chaos. The air was thick with panic and the smell of my mother's burnt coffee. The massive smart TV, the one Carter had insisted they buy, was useless. The Wi-Fi network. Thomas' home had evaporated. The screen was frozen on a pixelated, low-definition advertisement for a local car dealership. The volume was too loud. Carter was sweating. He was the logistics pro, the one who handled things, and he was failing. "It's fine," he said, his voice a strained falsetto. "My hotspot. I'll just use my hotspot." He was stabbing at the screen of his iPad Pro, the 12.9-inch glass slab that was his command center. He jabbed the settings icon. He jabbed cellular, and then he froze. A bright white pop-up box covered the screen, a digital stop sign. T-Mobile alert. This device has been flagged for unauthorized use. Your service is suspended pending identity verification. Please visit a T-Mobile store. He read it. He read it again. He knew he couldn't verify it. The device was a ghost, tied to a forged signature on an account I owned. The tablet was a brick. His face, usually so smooth and confident, went from flushed red to a sick, waxy pale, at the kitchen table, under the agonizing flicker of the failing light. My father Victor was holding the pages of Binder 2.0. Elaine, it says contract number. It's asking for a contract number to start a new service. His finger was shaking as it traced the line on the printed instruction sheet. It says we need to verify as the primary account holder. But she was the holder. I don't know what to do. His voice broke, wet with a pathetic, paralyzing despair. She has to answer. My mother, Elaine, was pacing, a worn groove in the carpet. Her phone was in her hand, a lifeline. She has to stop this. She can't do this. She hit redial. The phone rang. A tinny, desperate sound in the loud room. It rang once, twice, 3 times. She was about to hang up and dial again the 89th, maybe the 90th time when the ringing stopped. A click. Hello? The voice was mine. It was not the voice of Isla, her daughter. It was the voice of Ms. Thomas, the analyst from Northcrest. It was crisp, cold, and devoid of static. Elaine fumbled the phone, her hands spasming. Isla. Oh, thank God you have to stop this. Honey, this isn't funny. The power, the TV, Carter's iPad. It's all broken, Isla. Please, just talk to me. I had answered, in my quiet, clean apartment. I had seen her number flash, and I had tapped accept. I pressed the speaker button. I am not making noise, Mom, I said. My voice, broadcast from her cheap receiver, cut through the noise of the TV commercial. I am making things transparent. The room went silent. Even the TV seemed to fade. Check your emails, I commanded. All of you, Carter, Aunt Patrice, Uncle Ron. I sent a video conference link. Subject, live account audit. Click it. I heard the fumbling, the muttering. Carter, his face a mask of fury, grabbed his phone, the last device he had, and tapped the link. My face appeared on their small screens. I was not looking at them. I was looking at my data. I immediately shared my desktop. This, I said, as my spreadsheet filled their vision, is the final ledger. You are all witnesses. Here is the action log. Here is the timestamp, 2 years ago, of the T-Mobile authorization forgery. The IP address pings from 1255 Oakwood Drive. Carter, you were logged in fixing the router for Mom that day. Your IP address? Your action. I clicked to the next tab. Here is the data log for the iPad Pro. 42 gigabytes last month. 92% of that usage pings from the IP block for Brookridge Luxury Towers. Your apartment. Carter. Not this house. I clicked again. And here is the burner email address. Family proxy funds that you created to intercept the mortgage alerts from the bank. You built a system to hide the default. Carter stared at the screen, at his own digital trail. He was trapped. That's just temporary, he stammered, the sales star voice cracking. I was just helping manage the funds, keeping it smooth for them. Manage this, I said. My voice was ice. My cursor, which they could all see, moved across the shared screen. I was logged into the T-Mobile portal. My fraud claim had given me 30 minutes of executive access to finalize the separation. I clicked Account Authorizations. I found his name, glowing on the screen. Carter L., Authorized User. This is the authorization you used to add your tablet, I said. My cursor hovered over the red Revoke button. And this is me, clicking Confirm. I clicked it, live, in front of them. The page reloaded. A green bar. Success. Carter L. has been removed. Ping. In the living room. Their phones all chimed at once. A new email from T-Mobile. Subject, Alert Carter L. has been removed as an authorized user. The silence was a vacuum. Carter looked like he had been struck by lightning. The instructions are in the binder, I said, my voice filling the void. Binder 2.0. It is on the table in front of you. It has all the contact numbers. It has the step-by-step guides. It has every payment deadline. As if I had summoned it, my mother's phone began to ring. It wasn't me. The screen lit up. Unknown number. She answered it, numbly, a reflex. Hello? A cheerful robotic voice filled the room. This is an automated message from the Brookridge Utility Commission. Our records indicate your account is past due. A service shutoff is scheduled for tomorrow, November 28th. A new security deposit of $400 will be required to restore service. My mother's hand went limp. The phone slipped from her grasp and clattered onto the floor. The automated voice continued, tinny and relentless, from the floor. I am not a bank, I said, my voice now the only clear sound. I am not your safety net. I am not your wallet. I paused, letting the automated call and my voice mix. From now on, whoever uses it, pays for it. I ended the conference call. I closed my laptop. I put my phone in my bag. I stood up from my desk. In that cold house, the automated utility call was still playing, a looping soundtrack for their new life. The silence in my apartment was absolute. The 87 missed calls, the static I had lived with for a decade, had finally, truly stopped. I walked to my window. I did not look back. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm Maya, and I'd love to know where in the world you are listening from. Drop a comment below to say hello and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories and like this video. It truly helps. And if you want more stories like this to be heard, please support us by hitting that hype button.